the treen, and old Saturnus with his frosty face, with chilling cold had pierced the tender green, the mantles rent wherein enwrapped been the gladsome groves that now lay overthrown, the tappets torn and every bloom down blown. Small fowls flocking in their song did rue the winter's wrath, wherewith each thing defaced in woeful wise bewailed the summer past. When lo, the night with misty mantles spread, gan dark the day and dim the azure skies, it taught me well all earthly things be born to die the death, for naught long time may last, the summer's beauty yields to winter's blast. On the cresting life wave comic and tragic blend, if the dish be pleasant, either flesh or fish, 10 handis at once swarm in the dish. And if it be flesh, 10 connives shalt thou see, mangling the flesh, and in the platter flee. To put there thy handis is peril, without fail, without a gauntlet or else a glove of mail. Oft in such dishes in court is it seen, some leave their fingers, each knife is so keen. On a finger gnaweth some hasty glutton, supposing it a piece of beef or mutton. Whatever Berkeley's eclogues about 1510 owe to the humanist Pope Piccolomini, they stand on the huge slope of farce that leads from the Middle Ages through Rabelais and Bruegel to Cervantes and Shakespeare. With Rabelais, that farce takes the prodigious flesh it can only have where the sons of God have gone in to the daughters of men. L'occasion et manière comment Gargamel enfanta fut telle, et s'il ne le croyait, le fondement vous escape. The occasion and manner how Gargamel gave birth was this, and if you do not believe me, may your bumgut fall out. Her bumgut indeed did fall out from eating too many tripes. Grangousier bade his wife eat sparingly, because she was near her time. Notwithstanding, she did eat 16 quarters, 2 bushels, 3 pecks, and a pipkin full. What a filthy deal of loblolly was this, to swell and wamble in her guts. While they were drinking, she began to be a little unwell in her lower parts. The midwives, groping her below, found some pelladeries of a very bad savour, which they thought had been the child, but it was her fundament, which had escaped from eating too many tripes, whereupon an old ugly trot made her a medicine so binding that all her arse-pipes were so oppilated, stopped, and obstructed, you could scarcely have opened them with your teeth, which is a terrible thing to think on. Rubens crests the monstrous vindication of body, a gargantuan tie especially in the riotous Baroque, though we have trimmed it, of Matteux and Urquhart's Rabelais. After the thin Gothic nudes, Titian and Rubens. Falstaff also poses the question how bulk serves exuberance. Apt, we call it humour. And Renaissance languages, most of all English, with Latinate verbosination, to such exsufflicate and blown surmises matching thy inference, laid on enormous weight, yet trained it on home truths. From garden giants, Giambologna's Apennines, through Montper's Man Mountain called Summer, to the door mouth of the Casa Zuccari in Rome, we search the portentous overflow of symbol into body, the coincidence of humanist learning with huge codpieces, of Pantagruel's Tartarian guts, the time he was sick and swallowed 17 workers in copper balls, who opening spring traps came out with lanterns and spades, and groping and falling through a horrid infectious gulf, smelled their way to the fecal blockage, dug it up, cleaned it out with baskets, and so re-entering their copper spheres were vomited forth. The link between that and the great-souled letter Pantagruel receives from his father, exhorting to unbounded knowledge and virtue, to study all history, languages, manners, and chivalry, law, mathematics, science. For knowledge of the works of nature, let there be no sea, river, or fountain, of which you do not know the fishes, all fowls of the air, trees and shrubs of the forest, plants of the earth, all metals hid in its depths. Let me see thee a bottomless pit of knowledge. as in the thought of Paracelsus, no limits here, no abstract denial or separation of soul from earth and practice. The revelational order, like the starry spheres, has broken. In the mosaic domes of Byzantine Venice, where the creation of earth and biblical life of man circles its God center, the quest of delight reduces to an Eden episode and banishment of those angular, breast-fallen, flesh-denying nudes, all poignance of wish and loss gathered in rings of eternal gold. Where is the cry Ausonius distilled from the long earth love of Greece and Rome? To fill out Raphael's papal ceiling, collige virgo rosas, maiden, pluck the rose. Voyez comment peu d'espace, which Poliziano would revive with Quattrocento tenderness, cogliam la bella rosa del giardino, and the rebirth send abroad from Florence this Ronsard, mignon allons voir si la rosa, Spencer's translation from Tasso, gather the rose of love whilst yet is time, down to marvel's cormorant defiance, and tear our pleasures with rough strife, thorough the iron gates of life. Against the ascetic leap beyond death, the cry of time and flesh takes new imperative, as in the gaze of Primaticio's Ulysses, however late it is to tell Penelope, gather ye rosebuds while ye may. In that field of passionate impossibility, no poem has more beauty than the Ronsard sonnet Yeats would redo, when you are old and grey and full of sleep, though we have still to translate it. When you are old at evening, carding wool, bent to the glow of fire and candlelight, you will say, marveling at this verse I write, Ronsard sang of me when I was beautiful. There will not be a servant of them all, however spent with labor in the night, but starting at my name will praise your fate as one whom fame acclaims and ever shall. My bones will be underground, my ghost above rest in the twilight of the myrtle grove. You will be hunched at the fire, old and grey, regretting my love and your proud disdain. The time that passes will not come again. Believe me, pluck the rose of life today. That imperative is hurled against the recorded fate, you old and grey. Regrettons mon amour et votre fier destin. So cousins, snake-wreathed, skull-propped Eve, as first Pandora. Quand vous serez bien vieux au soir à la chandelle, assise auprès du feu dévidante et filante, direz, chantant mes vers, en vous émerveillante, Ronsard me célébra du temps que j'étais belle. Lors vous n'aurez servante, voyant telle nouvelle, déjà sous le labeur à demi sommeillante, qui au bruit de mon nom ne s'est réveillante, bénissant votre nom de louange immortelle. Je serai sous la terre, et fantôme sans eau, par les ombres myrteux je prendrai mon repos. Vous serez au fouillé, une vieille accroupie. Regrettons mon amour et votre fier dédain. Vivez si m'en croyez, n'attendez à demain. Cueillez dès aujourd'hui les roses de la vie. No doubt the poem exceeds French art of the time, requires the tragic radiance of Correggio's Antiope, or this Titian Venus of Pardo. The crux of Age of Gold, as in Tasso's Aminta, se piace e lice, if it pleases, it is allowed, against a world which grows old and sad, il mondo invecchia, e invecchiando intrisce. What power of the rebirth makes that desired Arcadia so real? Amiam, let us love, for the sun dies and is born, but for us its brief light fades, and sleep brings on eternal night. Il sonno eterna notte adduce. No doubt the magnified embodiment we are calling giant was implicit in the man-god reach of the Middle Ages. Already this Mary of painted limestone left, French, about 1320, smiles the sensuous poignance of Gothic humanization, though the archaic smile of the Greek chore is not more mysteriously suspended. To set, against its wistful ethereality, the mood and brooding weight of Michelangelo's 1530 Medicean Madonna is to touch the very pulse of prophetic enfleshment. As in dialectic theology, so in medieval discant, here English, early 14th century, or in the always more ingenious vaulting of cathedral stone, this Lady Chapel of Wells, we feel the stretching of that bow of spirit. In music, indeed, all later styles had to shape their being from the Gothic store. That architecture could have done likewise, Spain makes startlingly clear. In the 1500 Condestable Chapel of Burgos, as in this Spanish polyphony, articulate renaissance has been achieved without the intervention of the classical. While the crossing of Burgos, 1568, within the same Gothic and Moorish idiom, has solemnized a wreathing as grand as the many-voiced summits of polyphony. From this 12-part Inviolata attributed to Josquin, through Gombert, Willaert, Morales, to the mightiest of all, Talus, spem in alium, whose 40 voices fuse in a chordal enormity of passionate lowing, as of the brazen cow in which the tyrant of Syracuse burned his victim. concept of a 40-voice fabric is as far from the century before as folk plays from Rabelais, or this illuminated Tower of Babel quaintly harried by the angels from the 1563 Bruegel, where the claim of the mighty ones in the earth is spatially enacted. Though perhaps Tallis' greatest music is in the 5-voice Lamentations of Jeremiah, here in the epoch-making Della recording. These passionate implorations might span the continent of that tragic century, from the 1500 Gothic spatiality of King's College Chapel, Cambridge, to the thunderhead of Michelangelo's Judgment in Counter-Reformation Rome, of which a crude variant clouds the wall of the also late Gothic Beaufort Chapel in Warwick. Tallis, like Byrd, was a Catholic, writing in an England where despoiled monasteries enforced Shakespeare's metaphor of age, bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sang. How could the Titan, calmly revealed in the Renaissance island of 1500, knit incarnate thews, but in judgment tragedy and the war of values, which darkening to the Lear storm would found, confound, and fortify the airy earth freedoms first dreamed? As Milton would say, what purifies us is trial, and trial is by what is contrary. It is in Christian denial of his Promethean self and art that Michelangelo made the syntax of the sonnet a poetic battleground of hope and fear. Giunto è già al corso della vita mia, con tempestoso mar per fragil barca, al comun porto, ove a render si varca conto e ragion d'ogni opera trista e pia. Already now, across tempestuous seas, uncharted course, my brittle bark has blown to the common port, where all come to own account and cause of goods and trespasses. Wherefore the loving fancy's subtleties, that made of art an idol and a throne, break in deception, snares too late known, such bitter sweets as to damnation please. Amorous thoughts, long since proved vanities, what are you now, if double death incline, one sure, one doubted, both foretasted harms? Not any mastery of paint or stone can ease the heart that sees how love divine spreads on the cross to gather us, his arms. Né pinger, né scolpir, fie più che quieti, l'anima volta a quell'amor divino, qu'aperse a prender noi in croce le braccia. How far this last Michelangelo's self, Nicodemus as lamenting world father, has come from that youthful morning with Leonardo, Pico, and the rest in Medici Florence, how tragically pushed that self's prophetic claim. What high Renaissance had reached for in Neoplatonism, Josquin's Musica Reservata, in Raphael, or as here in the first works of Titian, was the earthly eternity of divine beauty and good. What Sidney would give Sapphic measure in his remaking of Sanazzaro's 1500 Arcadia. If the senseless spheres do yet hold a music, if the swan's sweet voice be not heard but at death, if the mute timber, when it hath the life lost, yieldeth a lute's tune, are then human minds privileged so meanly, as that hateful death can abridge them of power, with the voice of truth to record to all worlds that we be her spoils? The embodiment of that Promethean claim would lead those devotees through fields of lowering actuality, as Don Quixote would exclaim, "I do not even know how chivalry can work in so depraved a time." In the sonnet, the crisis would run from Michelangelo to Campanella to Gongora in Spain, in England to Shakespeare, and thereafter to Donne. The raptures of idea and form, not mine own fears, nor the prophetic soul of the wide world dreaming on things to come, can yet the lease of my true love control, supposed as forfeit to a confined doom, buckle under the assault of fact. Tired with all these, for restful death I cry, as to behold desert a beggar born, maiden virtue rudely strumpeted, captive good attending captain ill. Thus Titian, nearing 80, self-portrayed in an allegory of prudence and the ages of man. Titian, climaxing a productive life which reached from the laude and throttly repose of 1500 to the star-crossed pathos of the last Passion pictures, a darkening so widely shared, we seize almost at random from a generation of music on Lassus penitential psalms. The age-long threat of Moorish invasion broke in Lepanto, where Cervantes was maimed and then taken into slavery. But there was a symbolic Lepanto of new against old, and Cervantes was not the only giant of the spirit who fought there. In some such engagement, Bruno went up in flames. Galileo went captive behind Inquisition walls. It is hard for products of enlightenment to realize that the religious heightening is no less titanic than the worldly, no less fraught with earth-transforming danger. Bruno was a churchman, and who knows if the mystic frenzy of El Greco had been translated into thought and word, how heretical it might have been. Was not John of the Cross accused for those amorous meetings with Christ, where the loved into lover was changed? In Tintoretto it is Mary of Egypt who shares a night as God tinctured, as when Juan de la Cruz ascended Mount Carmel. En una noche escura, con ansias en amores inflamada. It is the night Tasso pooled with moonlight, silence, and love. What dewdrops, what tears, quae lagrime eran quelle. The woods and streams are quiet, and without wave the sea. Sien muti baci, e muti miei sospiri. Or in his Jerusalem, the Erminia brooding, which Fairfax has gleamingly rendered. Invested in her starry veil the night, in her kind arms embraced all this round. The silver moon from sea uprising bright spread frosty pearl on the candid ground, and Cynthia-like for beauty's glorious light the love-sick nymph threw glistering beams around, and counsellors of her old love she made those valleys dumb, that silence and that shade, e secretarie del suo amore antico, fair I muti campi, e quel silenzio amico. Since the mid-century chromatic experiments of Vicentino and Lassus, music had explored the mode of dramatic emotion and crepuscular melting. In Marenzio's setting of Petrarch's Night Sonnet, Solo e penso sui più deserti campi, what vast glimmerings of the plasmic world have been explored since Petrarch. The upper voice runs a half-tone scale from G to high G and back to C, setting all the other voices nocturnally awash.